Hello students and welcome to this first video on the Business Management Extended Essay. And in this series of videos, we're going to go through what is the extended essay, how we can do well of them, etc., etc. So this is the first video, and what we're going to do here is we're not going to do too much. We're just going to go through a few things. We're going to go through the requirements of the Business Management Extended Essay, how you can go about choosing your extended essay research question. And what I'm going to do is just share a few of the extended essays that I supervised in the past and just talk through them in brief detail. I mean, like I said, we're not going to do too much in this first video, just go through the basics. So firstly, what are the requirements of the Business Management Extended Essay? So what I've done here, this is taken from the IB guide. So I'm just going to read this. The extended essay gives students an opportunity to develop research skills by, firstly, reviewing business theories, concepts, and principles, and secondly, critically analyzing their use and application in the business world and their resultant impact on business activity. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read that, I'm kind of a bit lost. Okay, it's quite dense language. What I've tried to do for you is kind of put this into more simple phrases. So what the EE does is you're going to combine what you learn in the classroom or what you learn in the textbook. And so this is the BM, Business Management Tools, Techniques and Theories. You're going to combine that with what's happening in the real world. So you're going to take some sort of business from the real world. And then you're going to evaluate it. So you're going to come up with some sort of judgment, and then you're going to come to some sort of conclusion going forward. So just to give you an example, this is something that I read recently. To what extent is Netflix's recent loss in subscribers due to their pricing strategy? And what this question does here is it combines these three things here. So in my classroom, this is something that my students have been learning. So we've looked at Netflix. We looked at whether Netflix are overpriced. And so what students did is they used a product positioning matrix, a PPM, and they put Netflix and Amazon Prime and other streaming services onto that to try and see whether Netflix is generally overpriced or not. And then we would look at what's happening to a business in real life. So you can see, obviously, this is about Netflix. And this was based on an article I read where it said that Netflix were losing subscribers, or they weren't gaining as many subscribers as they thought, and what were the possible reasons for it. And this came about because I read this article about it, and this article claimed that Netflix was overpriced. And I thought, I don't think Netflix is overpriced, so let's investigate it to see if they really are. And then what we do is we'd evaluate this. So to the evaluative bit is to what extent. So what you might do in this essay is you might look at three reasons why Netflix is losing subscribers. So you might look at their pricing strategies. Maybe they're too expensive. You might look at, for example, their content. Do they not have enough good content or original content? And then maybe you might look at some other reasons, such as, well, during COVID, lots of people subscribe to Netflix. So maybe now people are unsubscribing, or they're moving away from Netflix because they've kind of watched everything, or they're moving across to other companies. So here again, we'd look at those three reasons, and then we might evaluate which of those reasons is the most important. And then we would then answer this question: is it their pricing strategies, or is it something else? So to give you a visual representation of what that might look like, you've got this diagram here. You start with a research question. So our research question is this question up here. And that's for me, one of the most important parts of the whole process is you need to get the research question correct. If you get the question correct, I always say that the whole process then becomes a lot easier. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go and collect secondary research. So news articles, journals, annual reports, publications from company websites, etc., etc. So just a point here is, in general, it's easier to collect information from publicly held companies. Because they're publicly held, they have to publish their accounts, their finances. And so if you do choose to do a privately held company or something else like that, it may be more difficult to collect information. So I always recommend doing a publicly held company if you can. So you're going to collect secondary research, and then you're going to use BM tools in order to answer the research question. What are the BM tools, terms, and theories? Well, these are some examples from the syllabus: Ansoff matrix, BCG matrix, decision tree, etc., etc., and of course financial statements, which are generally pretty important overall. Now, one thing to note, you can do primary research. So you can go and do interviews and surveys from the organization, but there's no need to. And just from my previous experience, students generally don't do primary research, and it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine to do that. So how can you go about choosing your research question? Well, here's a few things you can do. So maybe you can cover something you did in class, such as Netflix or whatever case studies you cover in class. Maybe something topical. So ideally, you are reading the business news every day or every few days. And so one I saw this week, so I subscribe to the Quartz Daily email, and this one came through that. Burger King will spend $1 billion buying its own restaurants. Sounds a bit strange for a company to buy its own restaurants, but Burger King currently is a franchise. And so what they're planning to do is to buy back all those restaurants that are franchised out. And so this would be a decent extended essay topic. Should they go, and is it a good decision for them to spend this money buying its own restaurants? So you'd look at the advantages, disadvantages, look at what else they could do with that money instead, et cetera, et cetera. You could also look at personal interest or, just anything from the news going forward. So this is why it's really important to read business news, because it keeps you up to date and gives you topics for extended essay and your IA as well, because your IA is going to be quite a similar sort of thing to this. You might also base it on the syllabus. So let's say you've done trade unions in class. This is chapter 2.5, part of the HL syllabus. So you might think, well, I found it really interesting when we studied trade unions, strike action, collective bargaining, etc. I'd really like to investigate that in more detail. And so you might choose that as your topic, and then you might go and find a business that is experiencing trade union problems, and then you could, form a research question around that. It's 2024 at the moment, so there's a lot of strike action going on around the world. So trade unions could be a good topic, or maybe you like IPOs or product positioning matrices or things like that. Your question can be forward-looking or backward-looking. Forward-looking means it's not happened yet, so you would evaluate whether they should do it or not. So the Burger King one would be forward-looking. So should they do it or not? So it's a yes, no, if you like. Backward-looking would mean that it's already happened, and you would do, was it a good decision? To what extent did it help their profitability to do whatever it was that they did? And then tips for good research questions and proposals. These are general guidelines. You don't have to follow these, but choose something you're interested in. Pretty obvious. If you're more interested in it, you're more likely to want to do the research. You don't know the answer at the moment. I think this one's really important. You want to do something where you ideally don't know the answer, because then the idea of the process is you go and do research and you find out the answer. If you've got a topic where you already know the answer, well, there's no point researching it because you've already come to a conclusion, unless your conclusion isn't based on research and you actually want to go and find out the answer. You want to do something that allows evaluation, so you can look at advantages and disadvantages, or working out which was the most important reason for something happening. And I would recommend not doing McDonald's, Apple, Starbucks, or any of those really big companies, just because the supervisors and examiners, a lot of students choose these big companies, and there's nothing wrong with doing them. Please do them if you want to, but as a supervisor, we read quite a few of these, and after a while, you like to read about different companies because they become quite repetitive. So here are some examples. These are companies that I have supervised. Sorry, these are extended essays on the companies in the extended essays that I supervised since 2016. So you can have a look through those. These are the ones I've taken. If you want to look at any patterns, I'm a sports fan, so there's a few football teams here. Last year I had a Formula One about Liberty Media. This one I'm doing one on Barcelona. Quite a few car companies. Car companies are pretty good for extended essays. So VW, Tesla, Mercedes, etc. Good tech companies are good and things like that. So here's 4 extended essays I've had in the past. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but the first one was about BMW. So self-cannibalize or die. To what extent will BMW self-cannibalize and impact their future brand positioning whilst introducing electric cars? So this one was about how BMW are creating electric versions of all of their cars. And this student looked at, well, if they create electric versions of all their cars, does that mean that they're taking customers away who would have bought the petrol version of those cars as well? So maybe they're not actually winning new customers; they're just stealing customers from their own customers who buy their own cars. So this looked at that. Inclusivity in the cosmetics industry. To what extent would the cosmetic brand Tarte and YSL benefit by creating a wider range of products with different skin tones? So this one was mostly about segmentation, specifically demographic segmentation. So they looked at, should companies provide different skin tones and cosmetics for that? This one was about BlackBerry. Why did BlackBerry fail? So they looked at things such as innovation, the culture of the business, and then ultimately, to what extent Apple, did they fail just because Apple brought out the iPhone? So that was a good one. So these are ones I've done in the past. I'm not going to go through these in detail, but those are ones from the past. Okay, that's it all finished. We've gone through those things. I'll see you in the next video.